The spaceship Starbound Dawn moved slowly through the dark space around planet Kepler 442b. Captain Lee Jamin stood on the bridge and looked at the big screen showing the new world below them. The planet looked green and blue like Earth, but different. Strange purple clouds moved across its surface, and the forests seemed to glow with their own light. Dr. Park So-young walked up to the captain with her computer tablet in her hands. She was the team scientist who studied alien life. Her face showed excitement and worry at the same time. "Captain, I am reading something very strange down there," she said. "The computers show large moving heat signals in the North Forests. They are too big to be normal animals, but they move together like they are smart." Captain Lee looked at the numbers on her screen. The heat signatures were huge, much bigger than any Earth animal. But the way they moved in groups showed intelligence. This could be the first time humans found thinking alien life. "How many of them are there?" he asked. "At least 50 in this group, maybe more. They stay together and move through the forest like they know where they are going." "Captain, I think we found something important." The captain called his team together. There was Kim Tae-hyun, their security officer who kept everyone safe. Yoon Ji-hae was their communications expert, who would try to talk to any aliens they found. The other team members were engineers and scientists, all excited about this new discovery. "We are going down to the planet," Captain Lee told them. "This might be first contact with intelligent alien life. Everyone follow the rules. No weapons unless I say so. Dr. Park will lead the science mission." The small shuttle left the main ship and flew down through the planet's thick atmosphere. The purple clouds around them sparkled with tiny lights like glitter. As they got closer to the surface, they could see the forest better. The trees were massive, much bigger than Earth trees, with silver bark that seemed to shine in the alien sunlight. They landed in a wide clearing surrounded by the giant trees. When the shuttle doors opened, the air smelled sweet but also metallic, like copper mixed with flowers. The forest around them was completely quiet. No bird sounds, no insect noises, nothing. Just silence that made every small sound they made seem very loud. "This is strange," whispered Yoon Ji-hae. "On Earth, forests are always noisy with life. Why is this one so quiet?" Dr. Park checked her instruments. "The air is safe to breathe. Temperature is good. But you are right about the quiet. Maybe the animals here are afraid of something." The team set up their equipment in the clearing. They put up a small shelter and turned on their sensors to watch for any movement in the forest. The sensors immediately started beeping. Something big was moving in the trees around them. "Captain," Kim Tae-hyun said quietly, "we have company. Multiple large objects moving toward us from 3 directions. They are staying hidden in the trees but getting closer." Captain Lee ordered everyone to stay calm and keep working, but be ready to run back to the shuttle if needed. The movement in the forest continued for almost an hour. Whatever was out there was watching them and taking its time. Then the forest at the edge of the clearing moved and something stepped out. Dr. Park gasped and almost dropped her equipment. The creature was like nothing she had ever seen or read about. It stood on 2 legs like a human but was almost 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in beautiful orange and black striped fur that gleamed like metal in the sunlight. The head was like a giant tiger but with larger, more intelligent eyes. Its arms were long and powerful with hands that had both fingers and claws. More of the creatures stepped out of the forest. There were 6 adults, all watching the humans with careful attention. Their movements were smooth and silent despite their huge size. Each step was placed with perfect control. "Nobody move," Captain Lee whispered to his team. "Let them make the first decision." The largest of the creatures, with old scars across its face and shoulders, stepped forward. Its yellow eyes looked at each human carefully, like it was trying to understand what they were. Behind the adults, 2 smaller shapes appeared. These were clearly young ones, about half the size of the adults but still bigger than any human. The young ones were more curious than afraid. They tried to get closer, but the adults made low, rumbling sounds that made them stay back. Dr. Park noticed that the adult creatures were protecting their young, while also studying the strange visitors. "They are intelligent," she whispered. "Look how they position themselves. The adults are in a defensive formation but not aggressive. They are as curious about us as we are about them." The lead creature tilted its massive head and made a sound that was part growl and part something else. It was clearly trying to communicate. The sound was deep and complex, like it had meaning beyond just noise. Yoon Ji-hae slowly activated her communication equipment. She started recording the sounds and trying to analyze them. "Captain, these sounds have patterns. This might be language. For nearly 2 hours, both groups just watched each other. The alien creatures seemed to be having their own discussion using low rumbles and gestures that the humans could not understand. The two young ones kept trying to get closer, their curiosity stronger than their fear. Finally, Dr. Park made a decision that would change everything. She slowly took off her helmet and breathed the alien air. It was a sign of trust, showing that she believed the creatures would not hurt her. The lead creature's ears moved forward, and it made a different sound, softer than before. It seemed to understand what her action meant. The other adults relaxed slightly, and the young ones finally managed to push past them to get a better look at the strange visitors. One of the young creatures, braver than the other, took a few steps toward Dr. Park. Its huge eyes were full of curiosity and intelligence. When it got close enough, it reached out one massive hand toward her, moving very slowly and carefully. Dr. Park held out her own hand. When their hands touched, she felt the warm fur and strong muscles underneath. The young creature made a soft purring sound, and its eyes seemed to smile. First contact had been made. The future of both species had just changed forever. The next morning brought new surprises for the human team. Dr. Park woke up to find the two young alien creatures sitting outside her tent, waiting patiently like curious cats. Their large yellow eyes watched every move she made as she came outside. "Good morning," she said softly to them. They tilted their huge heads at the sound of her voice and made quiet purring sounds back to her. Captain Lee joined her and shook his head in amazement. They have been sitting there for 2 hours. Kim checked on them several times during the night watch. They never moved or made any trouble. Just waited. The adult aliens had made their own camp nearby. The humans could see them moving between the trees, but they kept their distance while their young ones visited the strange newcomers. It was clear that trust was building slowly between the two groups. Yoon-ji-hai had worked all night on her computers, studying the sounds the aliens made. She came out of her tent with exciting news. "Captain, I think I understand some of their language. They use different types of growls and rumbles that mean different things. Also, they seem to release smells that carry information. It is much more complex than animal communication." Dr. Park knelt down near the two young aliens. She pointed to herself and said clearly, "Park." Then she pointed to Captain Lee and said, "Lee." The young creatures watched with great interest. The braver of the two young aliens pointed to itself with one large finger and made a sound like "Kinner." Then it pointed to its companion and made a different sound like "Thessa." Dr. Park felt excitement rush through her. They were learning each other's names. Over the next few hours, the humans and the young aliens worked together to learn basic communication. Dr. Park showed them human tools and equipment. Kinar and Thessa showed her strange objects from their world. They brought glowing flowers that changed colors when touched and small, creatures that seemed to disappear and reappear in different places. The breakthrough came when Thessa tried to copy Dr. Park's hand movements. The young alien was very good at learning the human gestures for water, food, and friendship. Soon they had created simple signs that both species could understand. By afternoon, the adult aliens came closer to the human camp. The large scarred leader, who the humans had started calling Vraxen, watched everything with intelligent eyes. He seemed impressed that the young humans could learn so quickly. Through careful gesturing and simple words, Vraxen began to share information with Captain Lee. The humans learned that these beings called themselves something like Kithra. They had been watching human spaceships for many years, tracking them with sensors that human technology could not detect. "They know about our other colonies," Captain Lee told his team in amazement. "They have been studying us from far away, but they chose not to make contact until now." That evening, something wonderful happened. Vraxen gestured for the humans to follow him into the forest. Kenar and Thessa walked beside Dr. Park, making happy purring sounds. The other adult Kithera surrounded the group protectively as they moved deeper into the glowing trees. What the humans saw next took their breath away. The Kithera city was not built like human cities. Instead, they had grown their homes from the living trees themselves. Massive tree trunks had been shaped into buildings that curved and flowed like natural sculptures. Bridges made of thick branches connected different levels, and everything glowed with soft bioluminescent light. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Park. "They have learned to work with nature instead of fighting against it. Their technology and the forest are working together. The Cathera showed them devices that seemed to be alive, tools that grew from seeds and changed shape based on what work needed to be done, transportation pods that moved through the trees using the forest's own energy, weapons that could focus the planet's natural electromagnetic fields into powerful beams. Kinar and Thessa acted as guides, showing Dr. Park their favorite places in the city. They brought her to a learning center where young Cathera played with devices that taught them hunting skills, mathematics, and social behavior through games. The human scientist realized that these toys were actually advanced educational technology. The most amazing discovery came when Vraxin led them to a huge underground chamber. Inside were massive computers made from living tissue and metal working together. These biomechanical systems were processing information from across the galaxy. Through improved communication, Vraxin explained that the Cathera had been watching the galaxy for hundreds of years. They had seen many civilizations rise and fall. Most importantly, they had learned that the galaxy was not the peaceful place that humans thought it was. Captain Lee felt a chill as he understood what Vraxin was trying to tell them. There were older, more powerful species out there, who controlled how younger races developed. These ancient beings did not want competition or change. They preferred to keep new species weak and dependent. "Are you saying that humanity is in danger?" Captain Lee asked through gestures and simple words. Vraxin's response was clear even without perfect translation. Yes. Humanity had grown too fast and become too independent. The older species had noticed and were making plans to stop human expansion. That night, as the human team slept in guest quarters made from living wood, Dr. Park lay awake thinking about what they had learned. Kinar and Thessa had curled up near her sleeping area like giant guard cats. Their presence was comforting, but she could not stop worrying about the future. The Cathera had survived by hiding and avoiding attention. But humanity was too spread out across too many worlds to hide now. The question was whether the two species could work together to find a different solution. Outside, the biomechanical computers continued their constant monitoring of galactic communications, tracking the movements of ships and the plans of species that saw humanity as a threat to their ancient control. Change was coming, whether anyone wanted it or not. The only question was whether it would bring freedom or destruction. 2 weeks had passed since the humans first met the Cathera. Every day brought new understanding between the two species. Dr. Park had become like a second mother to Kinar and Thessa, who followed her everywhere and brought her gifts from their world. The young Cathera had learned many human words, and Dr. Park had learned some of their rumbling language. They spent hours together as Kinar and Thessa showed her the secrets of their forest home. They taught her which plants could heal injuries and which ones could provide energy. They showed her how to read the patterns in the glowing trees that told weather and time. Captain Lee spent most of his time with Vraxin, learning more about the galactic situation. The news got worse each day. Through the biomechanical computers, they watched as alien fleets moved into position around human colonies. These ships belonged to something called the Dominion of Unified Worlds. The Dominion has controlled the galaxy for 10,000 years, Vraxin explained through their improving communication. They do not allow young species to grow too powerful or independent. When a race becomes too advanced, the Dominion steps in to guide them. Captain Lee did not like the sound of this guidance. What does that mean exactly? Vraxin showed him recordings from the biocomputers. The images were disturbing. Species that had once been proud and independent were now servants to the Dominion. Their technology was controlled, their population was managed, and their expansion was stopped. They were allowed to live, but never allowed to be truly free. This has happened to dozens of species, Vraxin continued. The Dominion tells them it is for galactic peace and stability. But really, it is about control. The old races want to stay in power forever. Dr. Park was learning similar things from Kinar and Thessa. The young Cathera used their learning games to show her galactic history. Through play, they demonstrated how species after species had been conquered not through war but through slow control that looked like help. Why did the Cathera not fight back? Dr. Park asked them. Thessa made sad rumbling sounds and showed her pictures in the biomechanical learning device. The Cathera had once been explorers and traders who traveled between many worlds. But when the Dominion came, they chose to hide rather than resist. They had watched other species try to fight and fail. "We survived by becoming invisible," Kinar added in his simple human words. We hide in our forests and the Dominion thinks we are just animals. But the hiding had come with a cost. The Cathara had given up their dreams of exploring the galaxy. They had trapped themselves on their own world to avoid the Dominion's attention. For generations, they had lived in fear of being discovered. The situation became urgent when the biocomputers detected a massive fleet approaching their system. The ships were unlike anything in human experience. They seemed to bend space around them and move in ways that defied physics. This was the Dominion coming to deal with the human problem. Vraxen called an emergency meeting of all the adult Kithara. The great chamber filled with hundreds of the tiger-like beings, all discussing what to do. Some wanted to hide deeper in the forests and hope the Dominion would not notice them. Others argued that this time might be different. Dr. Park found herself invited to speak to the gathering. Standing before hundreds of beings who could crush her easily, she felt very small. But Kanar and Thessa sat beside her, giving her courage. The Dominion has controlled you through fear, she told them. They make you believe that hiding is the only way to survive. But what kind of life is that? Always afraid, always limited, never free to explore or grow. She gestured to Kynar and Thessa. Your cubs understand something that maybe you have forgotten. They are not afraid to make friends with strangers. They are not afraid to learn new things. They still have the courage that made your people explorers long ago. An old female Cathara stood up and made challenging sounds. Vraxen translated for Dr. Park. She asks why humans think they can succeed where we failed. She says humans are young and do not understand the power of the Dominion. Dr. Park looked directly at the old female, because we do not fight alone. Humans and Cathara together are stronger than either species alone. Your biotechnology and our determination can create something new, something the Dominion has never faced before. To prove her point, Kynar and Thessa demonstrated something they had been working on in secret. They had taken human communication equipment and connected it to Cathara biotechnology. The result was a device that could send messages instantly across any distance, without being detected. The adult Cathara stared in amazement as the hybrid device contacted. Human colonies light years away in real time. No lag, no delay, and no way for the Dominion to intercept or trace the signals. This is impossible, whispered Vraxen. Our technology cannot do this alone. Human technology cannot do this alone. But together, Kanar purred proudly and gestured to Thessa. We made it better. Human ideas and Cathara growth. New things possible. The implications were staggering. If humans and Cathara could create technology that surpassed both parent species, they might have a chance against the Dominion. But it would require the Cathara to give up their hiding and join the fight. The debate among the Cathara continued through the night. Some argued for continued isolation, others began to see possibility in cooperation. The younger Cathara, inspired by Kynar and Thessa's example, spoke of being tired of living in fear. Finally, Vraxen stood and made his decision. The cubs have shown us a new path. We cannot hide forever while other species suffer under Dominion control. It is time to stand and fight, but not alone. Humans and Cathara together. The vote was close, but the Cathara chose courage over fear. They would help humanity resist the Dominion. More importantly, they would use the hybrid technology to contact other hidden species across the galaxy. For the first time in thousands of years, the Dominion would face united resistance. Dr. Park hugged Kanar and Thessa as the great chamber erupted in determined roars. The two cubs had accidentally started a galactic revolution through their innocent desire to help their human friend. The Dominion fleet was still days away, but now they would find a very different situation than they expected. Instead of one isolated human colony, they would discover the beginning of the largest resistance movement in galactic history. The Dominion fleet arrived like a storm from the void of space. 12 massive ships appeared in orbit around the planet, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Each vessel was larger than any human city, and they moved without making any sound that human sensors could detect. Captain Lee stood in the Cathara command center, watching the enemy ships on the biomechanical displays. The technology that Kanar and Thessa had created now connected the human team to Cathara systems, allowing them to see everything the aliens could see. By all the stars, whispered Kim Tae-hyun. Those ships are huge. How are we supposed to fight something like that? Vraxen rumbled grimly beside them. The Dominion has had 10,000 years to perfect their technology. They do not expect to fight. They expect all species to surrender when they see this power. Suddenly, every electronic device on the planet stopped working. The Dominion ships had sent out some kind of signal that shut down all human technology. Only the biomechanical Kythera systems continued to function. Then came the voice. It spoke directly into every mind on the planet, human and Kythera alike. The words were in perfect human language, cold and emotionless. Attention, inhabitants of this world. I am Coordinator Prime, speaking for the Dominion of Unified Worlds. Humanity has expanded beyond acceptable limits and must now be integrated into our peaceful galactic community. Dr. Park felt Kynar and Thessa press close to her sides. The young Kythera were frightened by the alien voice in their heads, but they were trying to be brave. All human military activities will cease immediately. The voice continued. All faster-than-light ships will be surrendered to Dominion control. Compliance stations will be established on all human worlds within 30 days. Resistance will result in corrective measures to ensure galactic stability. The message ended, leaving behind a terrible silence. Captain Lee looked around at his team and the Kythera leaders. Everyone understood what the Dominion was really saying. Submit or be destroyed. How long do we have? He asked Vraxen. The message said 30 days for full compliance, but they will expect an answer much sooner, probably within hours. Dr. Park knelt down to talk to Kynar and Thessa. The cubs were trembling but still holding on to the hybrid communication device they had built. Are you afraid? She asked them gently. Kynar nodded his large head. Yes, but also angry. Why do they think they can tell us how to live? Thessa made soft growling sounds. The device still works. The bad ships cannot stop it. We can still talk to friends far away. That gave Dr. Park an idea. Vraxen, can your biocomputers reach other hidden species across the galaxy? Yes, but most will not answer. They are too afraid of being discovered by the Dominion. What if the message comes from humans and Kythera together? What if we show them the hybrid technology and prove that cooperation makes us stronger? Over the next several hours, they crafted a message unlike any sent in galactic history. It was not a call for help or a plea for rescue. Instead, it was an invitation to join a revolution that was already beginning. The message was sent through the hybrid communication network to dozens of hidden species. It included technical specifications for the biomechanical fusion technology and proof that the Dominion could be surprised and challenged. The responses started coming back within hours. Species that had been hiding for centuries began to answer. Ancient warrior races that had been thought extinct revealed they had been secretly preparing for this moment. Civilizations that had been forced into client status began to whisper of rebellion, but the Dominion was not idle. Coordinator Prime sent smaller ships down to the planet's surface. These vessels landed in the human camp and began setting up compliance monitoring equipment. Attention, human team, came the cold voice again. You will report to the compliance station for integration processing. Any delays will be noted in your permanent records. Captain Lee made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Instead of reporting to the compliance station, he activated the hybrid communication system and sent a message that every species in the galaxy could hear. This is Captain Lee Jamin of Earth, speaking for humanity. We reject Dominion control. We choose freedom over safety, struggle over submission. Any species that wants to join us in breaking the chains of ancient oppression, stand with us now. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across hundreds of worlds, species began declaring independence from Dominion control. Hidden fleets emerged from asteroid fields and gas giant atmospheres. Client species stopped following Dominion orders and began coordinating their resistance. In the Kythera forest, war preparations began in earnest. The biomechanical factories started growing weapons and ships at incredible speed. Trees themselves became part of the defense network, their root systems carrying information and energy across the planet. Kynar and Thessa worked frantically to improve their hybrid communication system. They had realized that their invention could do more than just send messages. It could coordinate the actions of multiple species across vast distances, creating a level of military cooperation that the galaxy had never seen. We can make all the different people work together like one big family, Thessa explained to Dr. Park. Humans fast thinking, Kythera strong growing, other people different good things, all together much stronger. The Dominion tried to respond to the growing rebellion with their usual tactics of intimidation and selective punishment. But for the first time in 10,000 years, they faced coordinated resistance from dozens of species working in perfect unity. Coordinator Prime's next message showed the first signs of uncertainty. Rebellion against galactic stability will not be tolerated. Corrective measures are being implemented. Return to compliance immediately, but it was too late. The revolution had spread beyond any ability to contain it. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together against their common oppressor. The hybrid technology allowed them to trust each other in ways that had never been possible before. Dr. Park watched the galactic situation boards in amazement. Red dots representing Dominion forces were being surrounded by growing networks of blue dots representing the rebellion. The careful order that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was crumbling. The Cubs did this, she said to Vraxen in wonder. Two curious children who just wanted to help their friends accidentally started the biggest revolution in galactic history. Vraxen's scarred face showed something that might have been a smile. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needed, not the wisdom of adults who have learned to fear, but the courage of cubs who still believe anything is possible. Above them, the Dominion ships began moving into attack positions. The time for messages and threats was over. The real war was about to begin. The first battle began not in space but in the depths of the Kythera forest. Dominion ground forces had landed expecting to find primitive beings hiding among the trees. Instead, they encountered a living fortress that fought back with every root and branch. Dr. Park crouched in the command bunker with Kynar and Thessa pressed close beside her. The young Kythera were no longer playful cubs but serious partners in the resistance. Their hybrid communication device had grown into a galaxy-spanning network that coordinated resistance forces across hundreds of worlds. The trees are angry, Thessa said softly, watching the displays. They do not like the metal ships that burn their leaves. She was right. The Kythera had awakened their forest's defensive systems. Trees that had seemed peaceful now launched seed pods that exploded with devastating force. Vines thick as cables wrapped around Dominion vehicles and crushed them. The very ground opened up to swallow enemy soldiers. Captain Lee coordinated the defense from his position near the human shuttle. His small team of 8 had become commanders of a resistance that spanned the galaxy. Through the hybrid network, they could see battles raging on dozens of worlds simultaneously. Captain, Yunji Hai called out, I am receiving messages from 17 different species. They are all reporting successful attacks on Dominion positions. The coordination system is working perfectly. The success was beyond anything they had hoped for. Species that had been client states for thousands of years were suddenly fighting with skills and courage that amazed their former masters. Ancient warrior races were emerging from hiding with weapons and tactics the Dominion had forgotten existed. But the real surprise came from space. Kythera bioships that had been hidden in the forest canopy for centuries suddenly took flight. These vessels looked like giant insects or sea creatures, their hulls grown rather than built. They moved through space in ways that conventional ships could not match. Kynar pointed excitedly at the display showing the space battle. Look, the tree ships are dancing with the metal ships. Dancing and winning. The bioships did seem to dance as they fought. They flowed around Dominion attacks like water, then struck back with weapons that adapted to enemy defenses in real time. When Dominion shields blocked energy weapons, the bioships switched to kinetic projectiles. When point defense systems destroyed missiles, they released swarms of living creatures that could not be stopped by automated systems. Vraxen stood beside Captain Lee, his scarred face showing fierce satisfaction. We have been preparing for this fight for a very long time. Every year we stayed hidden, we grew stronger. The Dominion thought we were sleeping, but we were learning. The tide of battle began to turn when other hidden species joined the fight. Ancient beings that existed as pure energy arrived to disrupt Dominion communications. Silicon-based life forms that could survive in hard vacuum attacked enemy ships from the outside. Hive minds that could process information faster than any computer took control of Dominion automated systems. This is impossible, came Coordinator Prime's voice, no longer cold and certain. How are primitive species coordinating at this level? Our sensors detect no communication networks. Dr. Park smiled as she watched Kynar and Thessa work with their hybrid device. The Dominion could not detect biomechanical communications because they had never imagined that technology and biology could be merged so completely. The breakthrough came when a coalition fleet of rebel ships arrived in the system. These were not just Kythera bioships but vessels from dozens of species working together. Ships that looked like crystal formations flew alongside others that seemed to be made of living metal. Vessels that existed partially outside normal space appeared and disappeared around Dominion forces. Captain Lee found himself commanding this impossible fleet through the hybrid communication network. His words were instantly translated into dozens of languages and transmitted to ships across light years of space. All rebel forces, this is Captain Lee. Execute coordinated attack pattern 7. Kythera bioships take point positions. Crystal ships provide energy support. Phase ships hit them from dimensional flanks. Show the Dominion what cooperation looks like. The attack that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Dozens of different weapon types and combat styles combined into a single overwhelming assault. The Dominion ships, designed to fight predictable enemies using known tactics, could not adapt fast enough to the chaos of true cooperation. One by one, the massive Dominion vessels began to withdraw from the system. For the first time in 10,000 years, they were retreating from a battle. But Coordinator Prime was not finished. His final message carried threats that chilled everyone who heard it. This rebellion will be crushed. The Dominion has resources beyond your imagination. We will return with forces that will end this chaos forever. Galactic stability will be restored. As the Dominion fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the rebel forces began to realize the true scope of what they had started. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. Dr. Park hugged Kanar and Thessa as celebration roars echoed through the forest. The cubs had grown so much during the crisis, but they were still young enough to be excited by their victory. "We did it," Kanar said proudly. "We made the bad ships go away." "For now," Dr. Park agreed. "But they will come back with more ships and angrier thoughts. We need to be ready." Thessa's response surprised everyone. "Then we make more friends. The galaxy is big. Many people are still hiding. We find them all and make one big family." Looking at the tactical displays showing rebel forces across hundreds of worlds, Dr. Park realized that the cub was right. They had started something that could not be stopped. Species that had been isolated for millennia were working together. Ancient enemies were becoming allies. The galaxy was changing in ways that could never be reversed. The Dominion would return, but they would find a very different galaxy waiting for them. One where cooperation had replaced fear, where diversity was strength rather than weakness, and where two curious cubs had accidentally taught the universe how to be free. The real war was about to begin, but for the first time in galactic history, the oppressed species had hope. 6 months after the first victory, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. What had started as a simple first contact between humans and Kythera had grown into the largest cooperation movement in galactic history. The hybrid communication network now connected over 300 different species across thousands of worlds. Dr. Park stood in the new Galactic Cooperation Center that had grown from the living trees of the Kythera forest. Kanar and Thessa, now recognized as the young architects of galactic revolution, worked beside her with devices that would have seemed like magic just months before. The cubs had continued to improve their hybrid technology. What had started as a simple communication device had evolved into something that allowed different species to share, not just words, but thoughts, emotions, and even memories. For the first time in galactic history, truly understanding cooperation was possible. "Dr. Park," Thessa said in her much-improved human speech, "the crystal people from Andromeda want to show us their new ship designs. They learned to grow metal like we grow trees." Captain Lee approached from the command section where he had been coordinating with rebel fleets across the galaxy. His role had changed from exploring new worlds to helping birth a new kind of civilization. "The Dominion is massing forces at the galactic core," he reported. "Our scouts estimate they have gathered the largest fleet in recorded history. Over 10,000 ships from their core member species." Vraxon joined them, his scarred face showing both concern and determination. The Kythera leader had become the unofficial coordinator of defensive operations, his strategic mind proving invaluable in organizing dozens of different species with completely different ways of fighting. "Let them come," he rumbled. "They still think in the old ways. Overwhelming force against isolated targets. They do not understand what we have become." What they had become was unprecedented. The rebellion had grown far beyond military resistance into something completely new. Species that had been enemies for millennia were sharing technology and culture. Ancient secrets were being revealed and combined in ways that created capabilities No single species could achieve alone. The Kythera biotechnology had been merged with human engineering and dozens of other technical approaches. Ships now existed that were part grown, part built, and part formed from pure energy. Weapons that could adapt not just to enemy defenses but to the moral principles of whoever wielded them. Communication systems that could translate not just languages, but entirely different ways of thinking. Kynar demonstrated the latest breakthrough by connecting his mind briefly to the hybrid network. Instantly, he could see through the eyes of allies light years away, understand the thoughts of beings made of living crystal, and feel the emotions of energy creatures that existed as patterns of light. "It is like being part of a giant family," he explained to Dr. Park. "Everyone different, but everyone connected. The lonely times are over forever." The Dominion's final assault began 3 days later. The massive fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system, their formation covering an area larger than most solar systems. The ships were ancient and powerful, some dating back to the very founding of the Dominion 10,000 years ago. Coordinator Prime's voice reached every being in the galaxy through quantum communication systems that no species could block. "This rebellion ends now. Return to your designated worlds and resume your proper roles in galactic civilization. Continued resistance will result in the complete extinction of all rebel species. This is your final warning." The response came not from any single leader but from the hybrid network itself, carrying the combined voice of hundreds of species speaking as one. "We reject your authority. We choose cooperation over control, diversity over uniformity, freedom over the false peace of oppression. Come and face what the galaxy has become." The battle that followed lasted 7 days and changed the nature of warfare forever. The Dominion fleet, expecting to fight scattered resistance, instead encountered a living web of cooperation that adapted faster than they could respond. When they attacked Kythera bioships, energy beings merged with the organic vessels to provide shields that fed on weapons fire. When they targeted human command ships, phase-shifting species moved them into pocket dimensions where attacks could not reach. When they tried to jam communications, the hybrid network simply flowed around the interference like water around rocks. Dr. Park watched the battle from the safety of the Forest Command Center, but through the hybrid network she could experience every moment of the fight. She felt the determination of crystal warriors who sang their battle songs across light years. She shared the fierce joy of ancient hunter species finally able to fight for something they believed in. Kynar and Thessa had grown during the months of war, but they were still young enough to see the beauty in what was happening. "Look how everyone works together," Thessa said in wonder. "Like a dance where everyone knows the steps even though they never practiced." The turning point came when Dominion ships began surrendering. Not because they were defeated, but because their crews finally understood what they were fighting against. The hybrid network carried messages of cooperation and freedom that reached even the most loyal Dominion soldiers. "Why do we fight to preserve a system that limits everyone?" asked a Dominion captain whose ship was being gently disabled rather than destroyed. "Why do we fear change when it brings such beautiful possibilities?" One by one, Dominion ships stopped fighting and asked to join the cooperation network. Their crews, many of whom had served the old system for centuries, finally experienced what it felt like to be truly connected to others rather than simply controlled by them. Coordinator Prime's ship was the last to surrender. The ancient being who had spoken for the Dominion for thousands of years finally agreed to link into the hybrid network and experience cooperation for himself. What he found there changed him completely. Instead of the chaos and conflict he had expected, he discovered harmony beyond anything the rigid Dominion system had ever achieved. Species working together not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. The war ended not with conquest, but with transformation. The Dominion dissolved as its member species joined the growing cooperation network. Ancient hierarchies were replaced by fluid, partnerships that changed based on need and desire rather than unchanging law. Dr. Park stood with Kynar and Thessa in the garden that had grown around the Galactic Cooperation Center. Representatives from hundreds of species worked and played together in ways that would have been impossible just a year before. "Did you ever imagine it would become this big?" she asked the cubs. Kynar purred thoughtfully. "We just wanted to help our friend talk to her people far away. But helping one friend made us want to help more friends. Then all the friends wanted to help each other." Thessa added, Maybe that is how all good things start. One small kindness that grows into something beautiful. Looking up at the sky where ships from dozens of species traveled freely between the stars, Dr. Park had to agree. The galaxy had been transformed by the simple friendship between a human, scientist, and two curious alien cubs who refused to accept that different species could not be friends. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and it would spread to other galaxies as word traveled of what could be achieved when beings chose to work together, rather than against each other. The universe itself was about to become a much more interesting place.